Raven like a lunatic.
Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
It is Wednesday, my dudes. I was going to start by saying go blue.
It's Wednesday night. Here on the live stream, and Chris, we talked about it, and we pretty much decided just to go with the flow tonight, right? I mean, we kind of did it on Monday. I mean, we had our structure, we did our burning questions, we revisited the predictions, we talked about some of the specifics of the game, and I'm sure some of that same stuff's going to come up tonight. But we decided that we were just going to kind of go with the flow, see what comes in terms of comments from people on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And I want to start right there. First of all, we really, really appreciate all the people that tune in with us each week, because honestly, the numbers are going up, and it's actually pretty nice. Like, I think what was it? Was it like a Barstool thing I sent you before? Like, some Barstool account, some Barstool account on Twitter that has like 500,000 followers, and they were doing a live stream, and they only had like 200 or 250 viewers. I mean, we're getting damn near 100 every week, and we're nowhere near as big as Barstool. So I just want to give some appreciation and a shout out to those who do tune in with us each week, who do expect us to be here, who are asking us about our specific segments, who are commenting over and over and over again.
I mean, that's the thing that sticks out to me, the comments. Yeah, like it's to the point now, like when we started doing this thing, we would get like maybe a handful of comments. It's to the point now where it's really, really hard to keep up with all the comments that are coming in. And that's, to me, that's been the most fun part about it and that's what really sparked this idea was these, the involvement is so good and people bring such good ideas and talking points that I think it's just good to open the entire platform, and let's just have an open conversation. And if there's questions out there, let's chop it up and see if we can get a resolution. Like, Patrick's already got one in and he wants to discuss Josh Ross. And I know we haven't really spent much time on Josh Ross this year, but any thoughts to Patrick's question?
Yeah, I mean, so on paper, he's looked pretty good. He's always at or near the top of the tackle list, which you would expect from your linebacker. I mean, that's not a surprising thing. It's not like he's flying. You don't watch the film and be like, damn, he's flying all over the field. Like, your middle linebacker is going to lead you in tackles. That's typically how it goes. But there have been quite a few times where he's been out of position. Some of the play action RPO stuff where he's getting sucked up. I mean, the Nebraska play comes to mind right away. I'd have to go back and really dissect it and see, like, okay, is this definitely Josh Ross's responsibility? Where is he at? Where is he supposed to be at? Where's the safety at? Where are the other linebackers at? But I do think that, he's never been the most dynamic athlete. I mean, I think even he would tell you that. He lost some weight this year because he wanted to be a little lighter on his feet. He wanted to be faster, and he's just not that guy. He's not a freaky athlete. He's really smart. He's really he's a sound tackler, I feel like, when he is in position. But I do agree. I think he's been out of position a little bit here and there. He's a great leader. Yeah, Mal or Mal, however you say that from YouTube. He's a great leader. He was picked as a captain for a reason. Super smart Michigan guy through and through. Obviously, older brother played there. So it's like it's in his veins. But, yeah, athletically, I mean, he is a little bit limited. And I think that's showed up a few times on film this year. And I don't know if I'd want to say overrated, because I don't think I don't think anybody came in thinking like he's going to be one of the best linebackers in the Big Ten. I mean, he's a starter on Michigan's team. He's a senior. He's a captain. And you pretty much know what you're going to get with him. Now, sometimes that's not the best outcome, but I don't know. I don't know if I would say overrated, but I definitely think if you went back and looked game by game, snap by snap, you would find him, maybe not being in the right place at the right time all the time. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and there's probably a reason why Cam McGrone, once he got into that spot, took that spot and never looked back. And it's not a knock against Ross. It's just, I think what a lot of people have said is that he is a solid piece of that defense especially in terms of leadership. I think that's the biggest role he serves on the defensive side and on the team in general. But in terms of, making the right reads, making the right calls, being in position, being where you need to be, it seems like it's becoming a common theme where he's out of position or, he's not quite where he needs to be. Full disclosure, I don't watch his game that closely. I do see in the stat section, after the game, he's always leading in tackles. But to your point, when you play that position, you're probably going to lead in tackles on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, to your point, I think, solid player, good leader, but I'd overrated. I don't think that's fair because I think you make a good point that I didn't expect him to be elite. I think we're getting out of Josh Ross is what I expected to get out of Josh Ross.
You know what? It is a discussion maybe I could have, because I think if we went back, I think you could listen. I think you could find clips of me saying that Michigan had and I may have even used the word elite. I don't think I did, but I do remember saying you have a very, very good player at all three levels. That was Aiden Hutchinson, and I said Josh Ross, and I said Daxton Hill, and maybe that was a little bit too much of an adjective to use for him, because what you just said kind of feels right now. I think you're kind of getting out of him what you thought you were going to get out of him, but I may have praised him a little bit before the season. So that's, like I said, if I went back and really watched in depth each snap that he's played in each game, you could probably nitpick quite a bit out of there that he hasn't done super well. But I don't know. I think in the grand scheme of things, I don't think like Michigan's shortcomings on defense fall on him. I think I could say that pretty fairly too. But it's an interesting discussion for a fifth year.
Right. Hey, that is a hell of a question to start off the show.
Good. I mean, we just had 5 minutes of talking about Josh Ross's play when typically that doesn't really get discussed all that much. So there you go. Here's another great one. Is Kenneth Walker really that good, or was it just poor tackling Saturday? He's really that good, and there was poor tackling, so it's compounded.
But even if there's good tackling, Walker is really that good. I don't know. I mean, the only time you really saw him get tripped up was against Indiana, but it wasn't that Michigan didn't have an opportunity to get to him. He's the mass. He's thick. He'll run you over, but he's also really good at the jump cuts. Like there was one play in particular, it might have even been the first touchdown he scored, where he went into the pile, he jumped back, he cut out to the outside, and he was gone. So he's got just this rare combination of speed, athleticism, size. He's really damn good. The Michigan defense did not play well on Saturday, but Walker is the real deal.
He is, excuse me, he's a complete back. There's no doubt about it. And part of the poor tackling is credited directly to Kenneth Walker. So, I mean, They kind of go hand in hand. I think he's really freaking good. I think Michigan did miss some tackles, but I think he forced a lot of missed tackles as well. So, I mean, I think it's kind of a combination of all those things. Lee Brannon. Hell yeah, we can talk about the lack of killer instinct. I think that is the lone biggest reason for Saturday's loss is the lack of killer instinct, the lack of making a play when you had to have it, and basically settling for field goals when you needed touchdowns. That to me, above all else, was the biggest issue. I mean, would you like to not have the other guy's running back run for 5 touchdowns? Yeah, but he's really freaking good. And I think looking back at it, it wasn't like Michigan was horribly out of position. He found a little seam. He'd break a tackle, slide through an arm tackle, jump cut, and he was, he had a couple long ones. But anyway, I think the biggest issue on Saturday was that lack of killer instinct. And I think I mentioned this on on Monday's podcast. When I got home and watched some other football on Saturday, and I watched Penn State and Ohio State, Ryan Day and Ohio State went for it on 4th and 2, inside the 20. And I said, you couldn't pay Jim Harbaugh a $10 million bonus to do that. He's not going for it on 4th and 1 or 2.
Well, there was that specific instance, right? I go back to that. I go back to the punt by Brad Robbins, or what looked like it was going to be a fake punt. I remember being up in the press box and giving Jim Harbaugh a ton of credit for making such a gutsy call in the game. And then come to find out afterwards, it was literally, he just mishandled the snap, and, he almost got the first down. So I think you make a good point there, Lee, that you're right. it seems like when Michigan has the opportunity, when they've got their foot on the throat of an opponent, they just don't have that killer instinct, the ability to put them away, put the game away. It seems like it's an issue where there's always teams that are sort of hanging around and getting an opportunity. And I said going into the Michigan State game, that was exactly how I thought it was going to go, that Michigan would look like they were going to be in control early. Michigan State would rally late, and then we would have to figure out who was going to be the better team from there. But I didn't feel all that confident about Michigan's chances in that scenario. And it literally played out exactly the way I thought it would. It happened in a different manner, but the overall picture, the end result, played out pretty much exactly the way I thought it would.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is a good question, but I think it's a super easy answer, Sam. How come Michigan can't handle tempo on defense? Because they don't run tempo. That's why. Because when you try to recreate something in practice that you don't do or you're not naturally good at or isn't a part of what your offense is about, it's really hard to make it look like it's going to look on Saturday. And yeah, Michigan has moved into the 21st century in some regards. They don't huddle. They have the phantom clap, and then they look over to the sidelines to get the call. That's all part of the new age offense, but they don't go fast. They have it in there. I mean, if they're down, if they're up against the clock with a minute to go before halftime, sure, they can speed it up and go. But Michigan is not a tempo team. They don't try to create mismatches and get the other defense out of whack by going fast. Like you don't see that. They go up to the line. They got the phantom call. They look over there. It's pretty slow. It's pretty deliberate. Jim Harbaugh still values time of possession, even when I think that's one of the most useless stats in football these days.
You know what it almost looks like?
That's why.
I mean, look at 2015 and go back and look at all of the years. It almost looks like the same general package in different wrapping paper. Like it's presented a different way. We're going to do some things here on like a jet sweep and a shovel pass or whatever. But I haven't really seen the level of like creativity and explosiveness that I thought we were going to see from the Michigan offense. I know the question was about the defense, but I think you addressed that well. That's not their forte. That's not what they do well. And when you see, you could see the result on Saturday, multiple substitution mistakes that were costly.
Yeah, man, I'm trying to keep up with these questions, but it's even harder when we're trying to grab each one individually.
If we see some of the similar ones, like, well,
I apologize if I skip yours because there are a lot coming in, and as we stop to talk about them, more and more are coming in at the bottom. So just bear with me a little bit here, guys, because I do appreciate the input. So kind of back to the Josh Ross and the linebacker situation. Do we think we will see more of Mike Barrett? I don't know. I mean, like, he was kind of the odd man out because they got rid of the Viper position, and he's a little undersized, but he can run. That's a valid question. I mean, I wonder, is Mike Barrett the kind of guy who doesn't get burnt by a tight end on an RPO play or a play action play, or does he have a little bit more to offer sideline to sideline when you're chasing down these spread offenses? I think that's a legitimate question, but again, without seeing what's going on in practice and seeing how he adjusted to the new scheme and the new system and how good he is at what they're asking that position to do now versus when he was a Viper, I don't know. I mean, there's really no way for us to answer that question because he hasn't played very much this year, and I don't know what it's looking like, when he is in there. I'm sure he's getting reps in practice, but if it's with the second or third team, you just wonder, what that really looks like.
But I think you made a point that, when it comes to, as I'm looking at Michael Miller's question.
All right. Yeah, I'm still going through a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what you said last year, that if he was obviously a focal point of the defense last year, he was a crucial part of what they were trying to do. Guys like that don't just become less talented and less able to produce on the field. And so you're right. For guys like us, all we can do is speculate as to why he's not in there. But you're right. Josh Ross hasn't been overly impressive to this point, and you wonder if Michael Barrett maybe is better in certain situations where Ross would otherwise be out of position.
Man, Lee Brannon come with another big one, and this has been something that has been all over social media. I talked a little bit about it on what would have been Monday, and of course got some blowback on Twitter. Shocker, right?
You got blowback on Twitter?
Something I said people didn't agree with. Look, man, Andrew Anthony played 76 snaps through 7 games and didn't have a catch. And then on Saturday, he played 72 snaps, had 6 catches for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns, and looked like one of the more dynamic, fast, contested catch-making wide receivers on the team. If you automatically didn't think like, man, I'm kind of surprised, like not even questioning or challenging the coaches, because they were trying to figure some stuff out. Ronnie Bell goes down, then Roman Wilson goes down. But honestly, like with those two things happening, you think like, here's an even bigger reason why Andrell could have been in the game. 2 guys that were supposed to play a lot are suddenly not in the lineup. I don't know how you possibly couldn't have the natural thought of like, man, why wasn't he playing earlier?
Does it, let me ask you, does it lend credibility to the whole secret playbook, secret weapon? We're going to wait and unleash it when we need it most, because that's the only thing I can really think of.
No.
They didn't use him at all. And now all of a sudden at Michigan State, he looks like he could be in Heisman contention. I mean, if you do that week in and week out, guess what? You're probably in New York. So how does that happen all of a sudden? I think you make a good point that there seems to be this narrative that he needed to be brought along, that he needed more time and development. And it's like, dude, you don't develop that much in 8 weeks to the point where you're balling out. You're snagging balls off of the defender's head.
So 2 things that came at me after I brought up the whole Andrell. And by the way, I didn't ask the question at the press conference. Somebody else did. So I know there were a lot of people thinking it. And Andrell's answer was incredible, I thought. He said, everybody had their time. At the beginning, we thought it would be Ronnie, then he got hurt. Dalen Baldwin had a couple big weeks. Roman Wilson had a breakout game against Wisconsin. And now my number was called and I had a good game. Like, that's an incredible answer from a true freshman.
Great answer.
Who may have been frustrated about not playing a little bit more, but you certainly couldn't tell by how he conducted himself or what he said. And then when he got his number called, he went out there and made plays. That's how you prove that you should be out there. But 2 of the things that came back to me were, one was he was a true freshman. He didn't know what he was doing. He had to figure it out. And I'm like, oh, so he probably just figured that out on like Thursday before the game. Like, what do you mean? We're 8. I can understand if it's like week 2, maybe. Like, he wasn't quite ready yet. We're 8 weeks into the season. He plays and he blows up. Like
week 7, not ready. Week 8,
right? That's
All-American.
that makes no sense to me. And the other one was, and I don't know, man. I mean, maybe I am a little jaded because of what I think of Jim Harbaugh and his accomplishments. But somebody said, if you ask me, this was the perfect way to use him because clearly he was ready and he had a huge game. So why not give the coaches praise for bringing him in right now and in this game? And it goes back to what we just said. I just refuse to believe that he couldn't even touch the ball for 7 weeks. And then in week 8, he does that. That just seems like a stretch to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I see Justin. Can we go straight to Justin Jordan's comment? Because I don't want to skip anybody that's been in here.
I'm like not even halfway down. If we do that, we're gonna be.
You're gonna blow by a lot? Can I say it without us I just don't want us to.
I can go down and find it, I guess.
Because this is one that I think is if you look at the conversation that's
4 to 6 games one.
Correct. If you look at the conversation that's taking place within the Michigan fan base right now, there is a healthy portion of the fan base that believes exactly what Justin just articulated there, that, hey, before the season, you guys didn't think Michigan was going to be good. Nobody thought Michigan was going to be good. They thought this was like a 5 or 6 win team. Now, all of a sudden, here they are, 7-1, number 7 in the playoff rankings. They still got everything in front of them. Why aren't you giving Jim Harbaugh the props he deserves? And my response to that is, we've seen Jim Harbaugh win 7 games every year he's been in Ann Arbor, except the 2020 shortened season. Every other year he's done it. He's won 7 games. So the idea that in year 7, we're supposed to sit back and look at a 7-1 record and say, wow, we really lucked out. I got to give him the props he deserves, because they were way better than I thought they were going to be. Guys, you shouldn't even be thinking that going into year 7. This program should be at a point where it's up and running like a well-oiled machine. I give Jim Harbaugh all the credit in the world for the offseason hires. I think it went a long way towards contributing to the early success of the season. But at the end of the day, You expect Michigan to win the 7 games they won, given how things transpired during the season. Wisconsin wasn't as good as everybody thought they were going to be. Washington wasn't as good as everybody thought they were going to be. Michigan's better than people thought they were going to be. That's true. But Jim Harbaugh doesn't get credit for doing what he's supposed to do or what he should be doing in his sleep. You make your money the second half of the season against Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State. That's what the job is. So this idea that we're supposed to give him props and credit for a 7-1 record, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. This is where Michigan should be at year 7.
And listen, like, I'm whatever. I didn't think Michigan would come into the season 7-0. I didn't think they would be ranked inside the top 10 or number 7 in the first playoff ranking. That's all accurate. But even me, who had them at 7-5 preseason, that was my prediction. I had them at 6-2 right now. Like, the first half of their schedule wasn't very tricky. Thought they'd lose to Wisconsin, thought they'd lose to Washington, thought they'd beat Michigan State. That was before the season started. Now, certainly once you get into the year and you see what's happening, Washington loses to Montana. Wisconsin doesn't look nearly as good as they have. And Michigan State's, oh, by the way, also undefeated. So those things changed a little bit. But overall, yeah, I'm with Chris. Like, he hasn't really done anything that he hasn't done every year. Basically,
what's in those? Let's look at the 7. Look at the 7 wins, Justin. It's Rutgers, NIU, Western Michigan. I mean, even if you want to give him credit for some of the good wins that are in there, you look at all of the 7 wins. Some of those, again, he could win those games in his sleep. This guy was brought here to win the games, the type of game that he lost this past Saturday. And the problem is that he routinely loses that type of game. So at this point, people aren't excited about 7-1 because they've seen it before and they know where it ends. It ends in 9-3 or 8-4 with a loss to your rivals, maybe a loss maybe 10-2, but still no trophy. You lose the bowl game and it's a long off season. And then you go into the new year and you do the same thing over and over again. You get to a point in the season where you start to believe, they trip up. The question is, why aren't you supporting this team? Yada, yada, yada. Here we are again, man. You wrote the article that I think everybody needs to read, where you can literally pick and choose quotes and articles from the last 7 years.
Let me do it real quick. I'll read a couple. I was on the radio with Jamie Morris today, and I said this. I said, listen to these quotes, guys. We get another chance against – I'm sorry, I'll remove the we get another chance to come out and prove that we're improving. We don't want everybody down. Keep our heads up. We still got a whole season ahead of us. We get to take this with a grain of salt. We have to come back stronger, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Those quotes are from Blake O'Neill, Willie Henry, and Kenny Allen in 2015. That could have been from this weekend.
Kudos to you, Justin Jordan. Kudos to you, because you know what? Justin follows up that comment with, I hear you. I think I just like Jim as a person too much. And that type of honesty, look, that type of honesty, I respect the hell out of it. You know why, Justin? Because I suffer from the same thing. I will criticize Jim Harbaugh till I'm blue in the face, but when I'm in the same room with him or he comes walking nearby, I am a fan of Jim Harbaugh. I can't help it. It's like in me. I want to see the guy succeed. The difference is I can't conflate my desire for him to succeed with the reality that he's not, at least my definition of success. People might have different definitions, but by my definition of success, he's coming up short. So I think, Justin, that is a dose of honesty that a lot of people just don't have in them. I like him too. He's not doing good. Keep him around as like a mascot for the team. Oh. I don't know.
Here's why we're not going to skip ahead anymore, because now that I scrolled down, all of those old comments are gone. I can't see them anymore.
Oh, shit.
On StreamYard. So we can't be doing that. So apologies again for people who might
it's my fault.
There are actually quite a few questions that are pretty similar, so there's a good chance that whatever you ask is going to get, addressed on some level. But yeah, we're gonna try to take them. I mean, there's a lot of them in there already. So again, appreciate that, guys. Keep them coming. I think this is a fair question in year 3. Why has Josh Gaddis's offense not translated to Michigan? And is it as simple as they don't have the horses? He came out of the gates talking the speed and space and all this new, explosive. We got to be explosive and big plays and receivers who can, get yards after the catch. And they just haven't even tried to do that. I mean, like we've talked about it before, like some of the receiving corps that they've had when it was Donovan Peoples-Jones, Tariq Black, and Nico Collins. And I know Tariq Black got hurt and he was, he might not have had the best attitude about working and getting back on the field and whatever, but Nico Collins and Donovan Peoples-Jones alone is good enough to go out there and make a lot of plays. And they just didn't. They didn't use them. They didn't try to get them the ball in certain situations to let them succeed. That's been one of my biggest problems with Jim Harbaugh's teams every year, is that I feel like they ask their players to do things that they just can't do. I was pointing out examples of it against Michigan State. I asked somebody to take a screenshot, because we're in the press box. I'm not watching it on TV. We're trying to keep up with what's going on. I said, somebody screenshot that play and send it to me. I don't remember exactly what the play was, but the Michigan offensive lineman and tight end were asked to block 8 guys. It was 6 on 8, and the run got stuffed at the line of scrimmage. I'm like, dude, that's pre-snap stuff that you should see in Pee-wee ball. Like, that's not going to work. You can't ask 6 guys to block 8 and think you're going to pick up 3 or 4 yards. It's not going to happen. And I feel like there's been a lot of that over the years with Jim Harbaugh and his offenses and Gaddis. And it does kind of come back to, I still think Jim Harbaugh has his fingerprints all over play calling and offenses, even though we're not really sure. I mean, that question has never been completely answered directly, but it doesn't look all that different than it's ever looked. And he's had multiple offensive coordinators.
Like I said, it looks the same. The product looks the same. The wrapping paper might be a bit different. Maybe the formations are different. Maybe there's a little more pre-snap movement going on. But in terms of like the actual execution on the football field, I don't see any noticeable difference with Josh Gaddis. In fact, if you look at the numbers, Michigan's offense was getting worse year after year under Josh Gaddis. Now, I don't know where they're at this year. I haven't looked today, but
I can guarantee you one part of the offense is worse this year.
Sure. So point being, this is not about Michigan not having the talent. Michigan has plenty of talent to be competing for conference championships year in and year out, and the recruiting rankings reflect that every single year. And I say this all the time. I feel like I say it every time we're on the pod, that over the last 2 decades, Michigan has been number 1 or number 2 in the conference, like 17 of the last 21 years or something like that in terms of recruiting rankings. They're bringing in guys that are talented enough to win Big Ten championships. And we've seen teams do it with lesser talent. We've seen Penn State do it. We've seen teams like Iowa do it. We've seen teams like Michigan State go into Columbus and beat an Urban Meyer coach team. So we have seen other teams do it. The problem with Jim Harbaugh, he doesn't have to be perfect. He doesn't even have to go out and win national championships. He just has to prove that once he can get it done. And he hasn't. Not once. Like at Michigan, getting it done means beating your rivals, primarily Ohio State, right? And until this guy beats Ohio State, nobody's going to care about the rest of it. And it's not looking like it's trending that way this year either. So that's a long-winded response to say that Michigan is talented enough. I feel like the play calling and the coaching generally holds this talented group of players back. And I feel for them.
So that leads, I mean, this would be more like a capper question towards the end, but what are the odds of Michigan winning out? I don't think they have a chance. I mean, in what world do you think that they're going to beat Ohio State? How about this? How about this, Darren? And I know Darren's just asking the question, so I'm not going at Darren, but ask yourself this: how many times has it happened under Jim Harbaugh? I mean, that's all that you don't need to look any further. 0. So whenever I'm trying to figure out odds, I just kind of look at the track record and what has happened. And the reality is it hasn't happened. He has never won out in November, ever. So the idea that this is going to be the year on the heels of what we saw happen in East Lansing, to me, East Lansing looked very similar, even though we had heard everything was different, looked very similar to some of the issues we've seen before. And the idea that, you got to go to Happy Valley. Obviously, you've got Ohio State, Maryland on the road before you got Ohio State. There are opportunities for this team to trip up, specifically if they can, specifically if they continue to shoot themselves in the foot. So this is something that I've seen thrown around a lot, and even the players are kind of saying it. And I know I've heard it on social media and different places. Michigan is still in control of their own destiny. Season far from over. No, they're not. They need a Michigan State to lose twice to even have a chance to win out, beat Ohio State, and go to Indy. So they're not in control of their own destiny. They already need help with 4 games left. They need Michigan State to lose twice before they're even in position to beat Ohio State to get to Indy. That's just a mathematical thing.
That head-to-head stuff counts. That's why you need to win these games. That's why when we go into games like this and we say they're must-win games, because now you look at the situation, you've got guys like Matthew thinking Michigan's still in control, and they are not. They are dependent on another team who just beat them to shit the bed twice, and they might. They
could. Yeah, they play. Michigan State plays at Purdue, Maryland. I think Maryland at home, Penn State at home, and Ohio State. Like, they've got 2 really hard games, and this away game at Purdue this weekend is not a pushover. So, but no, Michigan could literally win all 4 games and not go to Indy. That's the reality that they created by not getting it done on Saturday in East Lansing. That's what they did. And that's why I said going in, for a lot of other reasons, but mathematically and just for this season alone, they could not lose that game. And they did, man. They freaking did. And that's why it's so frustrating. And that's why I don't understand the blind just support when it's coming up short again in the only moments that matter. That's the whole. There's a big segment of this that says, I can't believe one loss and everybody's jumping ship. And it's not. No, it's a track record. It's a pattern. People are, this is not the first time this conversation has taken place for people who feel similar to Brandon and I. This is a repetitive thing. It happens year in and year out. The idea that we have to sit back and wait until the end of this year before we say anything. It's like, why? Was I not supposed to say anything after year 6, year 5, year 4, year 3, year 2? Like, come on, we're in this thing long enough now to where it's okay to have these conversations. And if you're uncomfortable having them, you better find a way to get comfortable, because they're not going away, especially if the results continue. Can I read another quote real quick? Jeff Seidel of the Detroit Free Press wrote, the offense looked awfully familiar and weak. Once again, Michigan couldn't beat a ranked team on the road. Stop me if that sounds like a broken record. That's 17 straight road losses against ranked opponents. That was in 2018.
Okay. Hey, let me add on to that. I sent you a video the other day. You can label us as haters. Charles Woodson, 2019.
You guys might know him.
2019, Charles Woodson, week 3. You know what Charles Woodson's saying in week 3 in 2019? That Michigan was walking into a must-win game. They were walking into a must-win game. Week 3, 2019. That's Charles Woodson. You know what happened in that must-win game? Michigan got their ass kicked by Wisconsin. Charles Woodson also said in that same segment that Wisconsin was a must-win game because Ohio State was a must-win game. And in order for Ohio State to matter, they had to beat Wisconsin. Guess what happened when Michigan played Ohio State in 2019? They got their ass kicked. This was 2019. Guys like Charles Woodson are saying must-win games, do or die. The seat's going to get hot. Here we are now, 2021, November. We're having the same discussion. So stop asking people to sit back and be patient and let it play out. It's already played out. We've seen it. You're just late to the party. You're still clinging to hope that this will be different. And it might be, but don't ask people like us to go there with you. If it's different, I'll give them credit at the end, but I am not going to make the mistake of picking this team against a team like Ohio. I did it against Michigan State. Against everything I believed, I picked Michigan over Michigan State, and it made me look like an asshole.
Yeah. And Matthew, I don't understand. You saying there's a lot of football left. Sure. Michigan's number 7 in the CFP. Yes. The poll takes 1 or 2 losses, and Michigan is right there. They just have to win out, so they do control their own destiny. I'm not sure. They need Michigan State to lose. I don't think there's a world where Michigan moves ahead of Michigan State unless they lose twice.
I think he thinks that just by the power of Michigan, if they win out, that of course the College Football Playoff Committee would put Michigan in over Michigan State because it's Michigan.
You cannot justify Michigan moving ahead of Michigan State in any scenario when they played against each other and Michigan lost. Unless Michigan State loses twice, and then Michigan is then back in the driver's seat for their Big Ten standings. There's no way. They do not control their own destiny. They could win every single game, and they have to have somebody ahead of them lose for them to move into anything of any substance. That's a fact. There's no way. There's no way that they can get back up there high enough unless some other teams lose. So that's the definition of not controlling your own destiny. I think this is a good question. It's one I've thought about a lot already because we haven't seen what this team does off of a loss yet. So what do we think? Does Michigan crisp and body Indiana, beat them by 20-some like the spread says, or is this a little bit of a trap game and they're a little bit down in the dumps and they're looking at Penn State a little bit? Like, I think both scenarios are pretty realistic and we haven't seen what this team can do yet. I in the big picture, I don't think there's much different about this team. I don't. I mean, it's still a Jim Harbaugh-led team. I still feel like they're going to have the biggest of the biggest games left on their schedule, and it's just not going to go their way because that's everything we've just talked about. But I do like the senior captain leadership out of guys like Aiden Hutchinson, Vistardis, Ronnie Bell, who's not playing, Josh Ross. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a pretty strong bounce back against a team that's not very good. Indiana's not a good team. I know they just played Michigan State pretty tough, but they're 2-6, and they've only beaten like absolute like trash teams. So I would expect Michigan to win pretty easily, but this is a very curious thing because we don't know what the mental fortitude is of this team because we haven't had to see it yet off a loss.
Well, here's what I was thinking that, and I kind of had the same thought process. I think we talked about this on one of the earlier shows, but for all the reasons you mentioned, I think the senior leadership on this team, I think the captains on this team, I think that they will come out fired up and ready to play. I don't expect there to be an issue from that side of things, but again, you still have the same coaching staff on the sidelines. You're still going to have to deal with those in-game moments that matter. And I didn't know what time this game was going to be when I first started thinking about it. So it's a night game. Indiana has had an awful season. Michigan's wounded. I think Michigan's going to put them in a body bag, but I can see a scenario where this is a 4-quarter game and Michigan's fighting for their life against Indiana. And even if it leads to a win, I feel like they have to come out and win convincingly. I feel like if they get into a dogfight with Indiana, it's going to make Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State look very, very iffy.
I know we don't normally do this, but I don't care. I'm doing it. I did a write-up for the Indiana website, and I picked Michigan to win 34-17. So there you go. That's what I think. That's what should happen. At least that much should happen, in my opinion. Will it? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what kind of resolve this team does have after a tough loss in this home night game against a not very good Indiana team. Cody, I think you hit it on the head, man. Expectations change throughout the season. It's fluid. The rankings change. What you expect a team to do changes. So when the season started and I said 7-5 for Michigan and now they're 7-1, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going to do better than that. Like that.
Is it still fair to expect Wisconsin to be a playoff team? I mean, things change throughout the course of the season.
That's it. You've got to watch what happens. I mean, a guy gets hurt. I mean, like there's a million things that go into expectations changing. That's the nature of. That's why you do weekly rankings. That's why there's power rankings. That's why there's such thing as an upset that maybe didn't look like one at the beginning of the year. I mean, like, yeah, the expectations change. So just because you didn't think Michigan was going to be that good this year, and now all of a sudden they're doing pretty well, that doesn't mean that Jim Harbaugh like suddenly is amazing and gets. You just forget about everything that's happened for the other 6 seasons. I don't get that. I don't get that approach.
Right.
He's done a good job so far this year, but like he's done a good job every year he's been here, but good's not good enough. Like that's
I actually wrote an article about that. I think it was literally titled that.
That's
Jim Harbaugh does a good job at the University of Michigan. I think is anybody debating whether or not Jim Harbaugh is doing a good job at the University of Michigan? He does a good job. I see people make that argument all the time that teams would kill to have 9 wins You're right. There are programs that would kill to have the type of success that Michigan's currently having under Jim Harbaugh and has had under Jim Harbaugh. But this isn't most programs. And that wasn't the expectation when he was hired here. So for all this talk about people moving the goalpost when it comes to Jim Harbaugh, you guys who are apologists for Jim Harbaugh, you are the guiltiest of moving the goalpost, because before he was hired, it was the standard to beat Ohio State at the University of Michigan. It was the standard to beat your rivals. And now you guys are talking, we're an academic institution, we can't compete with, like, get the hell out of here. We're not on the same level. We don't look at this program the same if you're there. I agree with Cody. Stop apologizing. Stop apologizing for it.
I might need to cool Chris off a little bit. I
might need to go take a cold shower.
I might need to cool him off a little bit. But I agree with Cody in that the expectations change throughout the year based on what you see. And I don't know. To me, that's normal. That's normal behavior, in my opinion. Well, okay. This is 4 games to go. Yeah, that is a question. Who starts at quarterback next year?
It better not be a question.
We know that Harbaugh will be loyal to Cade this season unless an injury emerges. I don't think that's true. I think if Jim Harbaugh finds a way to not play J.J. McCarthy next year, there will be a freaking riot.
We've said, okay, things that can't happen, right? We talked about going into the Michigan State game. You can't lose that game. I am telling you right now, there is not a scenario where next year rolls around and J.J. McCarthy's not the starting quarterback. That can't happen. At least that's how I believe it's going to be, which goes back to, if that's always going to be the case anyway, wouldn't you rather have him going into that situation with a full year of game under his belt? Different conversation, but I think it's JJ all day. Otherwise, you recruit 5-star quarterbacks to come play for your football team. You get him out on the field. He's a special talent. We've seen it. If they can't develop this kid into a superstar, there's a big problem. We haven't seen it yet. Cade's the closest thing.
And on that topic, Jim Harbaugh was a little bit indirect when asked about Cade. I think he said, we'll see. I think that's all he said. Someone asked, like, how's Cade doing after he was, reportedly in the injury tent and what's going on there. And Jim Harbaugh just kind of said, like, yeah, we'll see. I think that's all he said. So that's interesting. I mean, at this point of the season, you're not hiding anything from anybody. You're not surprising anyone. So if he was good to go, if he was healthy and he was going to be the guy, I think Harbaugh would have just said, yeah, he's fine. He's fine. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what that means for this Saturday. I mean, if JJ McCarthy walks out there to start that game in Michigan Stadium at night.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. If Cade's got a boo-boo and can't play, and JJ plays a full 4 quarters against Indiana, Michigan gets the win, JJ looks decent. I mean, at this point, is there a reason to even go back, or do you just ride it? Do you go back?
Man.
If it looks good, if it looks as good as a lot of people think it's going to look, I don't know, man.
Listen, I actually, okay, everybody knows where I stand on Harbaugh. I wanted him gone last year. I wanted him, I was not impressed. I haven't been impressed in quite a while, but I was all the way done with him last year. And then they cut his salary and they cut his buyout. And I'm like, well, freaking get rid of the guy. What are you doing? Like, it's clear you don't trust or value what he's doing now versus when he was brought in. Whatever, that's beside the point. But then everybody says, who are you going to get? You can't just move on from. You got to give him a little bit more time. Rich Rod, like, oh my God, if we do the Rich Rod, that was like a decade ago or more.
The ghost of Rich Rod will haunt this program forever.
But look what Ryan has to say here. So many people arguing that Harbaugh has to stay. You got to back him. There's no one out there. LSU is shit canning Ed Orgeron. He won a title 2 years ago. He's gone. He's gone. He's fired.
You know why? Because they like to win football games there.
That's fired.
That's the job.
I was just reading about Joe Moorhead yesterday because I love his offense at Oregon, and that would be like, a potential head coach maybe to look at down the line. I know he didn't do real good at Mississippi State. He was at Mississippi State for 1 year, and they shit canned him. Got him out there. Like that's like 8-year leash when you're not really doing what you're supposed to do.
I'll give him a few more years.
Unprecedented. If he didn't wear the winged helmet and number 4 and play for Bo, this is a moot point. This is a non-discussion at this point. But dude, Orgeron won a title 2 years ago. They're shooting him to the moon after this year.
Bye.
Yeah. Later, Coach O.
Meanwhile, we got people like, listen, by year 11, this thing's sure to take off. Because obviously, based on these hypothetical scenarios, right?
I said that to Jamie on the radio today. I'm like, we're approaching a decade, and and he's like, oh, come on, it's not a decade. Don't be adding years. I'm like, Jamie, in another couple weeks, we're going to be heading into year 8.
Dude, again,
that's almost a decade.
I don't even think JJ was old enough to stay home alone when Harbaugh was hired.
Yeah. Damn, dude, these comments, there's so many of them. When I scroll down to get the new ones, it like jumps, and then I can't even go back up to the old ones. So I don't know. Anyway, just going to keep going. There's a bunch of them in here. You guys are bringing some really good stuff to talk about.
Dude, we're just breezing. Look we're at 44 minutes, and I feel like I haven't even taken a breath.
I know. It's crazy. It is crazy. A lot of comments. This is an interesting question. I wouldn't.
No.
I wouldn't. Would I be okay? Sorry, I forget some people might not be seeing the question. Would you be happy with a New Year's Six bowl? No, because like is
it 10-2 and a New Year's Six bowl?
If that comes along with a loss to Michigan State and Ohio State, then no. Why would you be happy with that?
Let me ask anybody a question. If Michigan goes to a New Year's Six bowl with a 10-2 record and losses to Michigan State and Ohio State, are you repping that? Let's say they get the bowl game. They win the bowl game. Are you repping that gear from that season? Are you proud of that season? Is that a successful season? And I want to say this because I said this to Brandon earlier, and I want to make sure that I clarify this. A lot of people who defend Jim Harbaugh will go to his winning percentage, and they will compare it to other coaches in the Big Ten. They'll compare it to other coaches since 2015 when Jim Harbaugh came in. Do you know who winning percentage benefits? One person.
One guy.
Jim Harbaugh. Ask yourself, when you're bragging about a 70% winning percentage, ask yourself, does Aiden Hutchinson give a shit about Jim Harbaugh's winning percentage? Does any player on that roster, when they're down after that ass kicking by MSU, says, yeah, but you know what? The winning percentage this year is looking really damn good. No. So stop using winning percentage as like some sort of like holy grail that this is the ultimate defense. It's not, guys. He should have a high winning percentage against Rutgers, Minnesota, Illinois, teams like that. He should be beating those teams. Mm-hmm. Why is it that you guys want to talk about 7-1, but you don't want to talk about 0-9? Why do you want to talk about 7-1, but you don't want to talk about 0-5? Everybody's so fixated on 7-1. He's 7-1. You love that record, but you won't even talk about the other ones.
Yeah,
it blows my mind.
That is peculiar. And now I'll throw this up, and I don't know if we need to talk about this much anymore. I get Joshua. I guess he says we're looking at Indy, so making the Big Ten championship. He said he's talking about the playoffs. 3 teams ahead of Michigan. Michigan plays one. Ohio State, Michigan State play each other. Alabama, Georgia play each other. It's possible to get into the top 4 without Indy. I cannot see a scenario where the non-Big Ten champ makes it to the playoff.
How about this?
I don't see it.
How about this? I would hate to see that happen. I would feel dirty.
It would feel a little bit greasy.
Listen, okay. Are you talking about a 10? Wait, are we talking 10-2, or we're talking Michigan wins out?
It'd be Michigan winning out, so they'd be 11.
Oh, okay, all right.
Don't make it to Indy because I guess that at that point Michigan State would have also won out.
If they win out, no, I thought we were talking about a 10-2 scenario. There is no scenario in the world where 10-2 makes me happy. None.
Yeah. That would be really interesting. So that would mean that Michigan State runs the table. They go 12-0. Or no, they could go 11-1. They could also go 11-1, and they would own the tiebreaker against Michigan.
Right.
So
that's why it's 2.
So what would it be? It would be like Michigan State would lose to Penn State, but then beat Ohio State. Michigan beats Ohio State. Michigan State would go to Indy.
Right.
I mean, maybe, dude, but I don't think so. I don't think a team in the Big Ten that doesn't play in the Big Ten title game is going to the playoff.
Shouldn't.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that would be – I mean, man, I guess you're backing into the playoff, but, I mean, at that point, do you really care? The playoff. You still haven't you still haven't won a Big Ten title. I guess you would have added the Ohio State win.
Let me ask you this. If you do win out, you don't go to Indy, so you don't get to win a title. And you get hammered the first round of the playoffs. Is that a successful run? Like you miss the conference championship and you get boat raced in the first round of the playoff. Like, I don't know, man. We're like, I just feel like as a fan base, we're like trying to like convince ourselves what we should be happy and satisfied with, like grasping at straws, like, well, this would be enough or that would be okay. Or if this happened, I would walk away, I guess, feeling good about it. Like, can we stop doing that? Like, just win. Just win. I have watched other coaches and other teams do it. Win. And Ron Thomas, I do need a hug. Thank you.
I was just going to. We're in our feelings right now, man. We're just in our feelings. No rational statistics to back up what we're saying. This is all.
Wait, hold on a second. What is the? They're not thinking I don't even know. This.
I think he's referring to an other comment that we've got so many coming in from 3 different platforms that I don't know exactly what.
So hold on a second. So the general consensus there by Mr. Glasper is that everything we've said so far is based entirely on emotion. Yet the people who are out there using memes from Cade McNamara last year to give us hope for this year, like, come on, man. This is not emotional. This is facts. No. Like we can give you actual numbers.
That's what emotional. I mean, I hate to say this. I told Chris this earlier. Covering this team for 8 years has killed a lot of my emotion. I'm not going to lie. I look at the numbers. I look at the expectations. I look at the shortcomings. I look at all those things, and that's all I need. I've said this to Chris before too. Like, I feel like there's multiple things that are unacceptable and maybe even fireable if you're the head coach at Michigan. And Jim Harbaugh has like several of them that won by them. Like going 0 for 5 against Ohio State is close to maybe being fireable.
Nobody's ever been allowed to do it.
Going 3-4 against Michigan State in 7 years is maybe close to being fireable. He's got that too. Going 0-2 against Mel Tucker in a rebuild against a team that's not very talented. They're much better this year, but last year that team was trash. They lost. That's maybe close to fireable. The no wins on the road against ranked teams, the never winning as an underdog, the no trips to Indy, which obviously means no Big Ten titles. All of those things by themselves are like in the discussion of like, is this really our guy? You know, maybe 4 or 5 years in, we're in year 7. He's got all of those. Bro, this is emotion. Do you hear what I'm saying? I'm not talking about me being upset. I'm not talking about me being disappointed. I'm spitting you numbers. That's it. Right. There's no emotion there. Am I emotional about those numbers? You're damn right. I want to watch this team win at a high level, and it hasn't happened.
You know what? I just go back to that question I brought out before. What was, I forget what that gentleman's name was, but you can ask yourself, would you have signed on to this if you knew these were going to be the results before he was even hired? Look at the total body of work, the winning percentage, top 15 teams, road top 15 teams, rival. Look at the total body of work for Jim Harbaugh up to today and tell me, would you have pressed the hire button if you knew that was going to be the body of work? If you say yes, please explain to me what you're basing that on. I have to know. I've got to know what it is. What is it about his body of work, if you were looking in the future, looks so good to you that you say, yeah, that's worth it. We need that. I haven't seen it. Maybe I'm missing something. So please elaborate.
Here it is again.
It is.
We just talked about it, man.
It's unreal. It's unreal.
What does 7-1 with a loss to Michigan State mean to you right now?
This is
I don't get it.
Mr. Glasper is the type of guy who gets a hard on for winning percentages. I don't.
It doesn't do anything for me.
Beat Michigan State, beat Ohio State.
I did have 7.
He did have him 7-5. And
I also
what? Hey, DK or D2K2J, where did the AP poll have Michigan preseason? Not even ranked.
Yeah, I mean, like
things evolve. It's such a stupid argument to make. What do you want him to do? Do you really want him to predict 12-0 every year? Is that what's going to make you feel better? Is that what's going to give people like us credibility? 12-0, man. 12-0.
They're going to win every game. They're going to win every single game. That's what I'll say from now on.
Why even do our predictions, man? It's a W every week.
I don't know. Yeah, just they're going to win every game. Not a lot of. I'm trying to find more questions, but there's just kind of a lot of back and forth in here. Yeah, this is back to the playoff thing. If Alabama takes another loss plus lose to Georgia, does two Big Ten teams get in? It's possible. It is possible. I don't really see a Big Ten team getting in that didn't even play in the Big Ten title game. But yeah, it's possible, and we have seen something like that before. Didn't Ohio State do that a few years back? Right? Was it the year Penn State won the Big Ten? They didn't go to the playoff.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's not unprecedented. I get it. I don't know. We'll see, man. We will see. Obviously, obviously Michigan is a massive brand. We just saw Michigan State was the most watched college football game of the season. So there are some things working in their favor if there does end up being, kind of this back and forth if some of those scenarios play out. But again, it's a lot about, it's a lot about some ifs that just flat out have not happened. That's why I'm not super confident.
I have a question. Did the person that posted that comment, did they say that you predicted 7-5 and then like an LOL or something like that?
Yeah, this guy Brandon.
Okay. How many wins does Michigan have 8 weeks into the season?
They have 7.
They have 7 wins. So what does this guy even laugh? Again, hold on. But what you're doing, but again, think about what you're doing. You're already giving them credit for things that haven't happened. And that's what pisses me off. Like, pound your chest after they go out and win these next 4 weeks. Because as it stands, they've got 7 wins on the season.
I mean, I would bet a lot of money that they're going to win 9 games minimum. Because the Indiana at home this weekend should be an easy win. And Maryland's not very good either. And that's on the road. So that's fine. That's great. I have no problem saying I picked the wrong score prediction or record prediction before the season started. No problem at all.
But that's my thing. If you're off 2 games, that's egregious? I don't understand. I don't understand that line of thinking.
It's not. I mean, whatever. I mean, you can look. I said 7-5. Let's say they even go 10-2. They do quite a bit better than I thought. Freaking cool, man. You lost to Michigan State. You're probably going to lose to Ohio State, and nothing new. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't. That won't move the needle for me. Like when I thought they were going to go 7-5 and they won more games than that, but didn't really get anything of significance, then I don't know.
I want to say this. I want to say this to Mel. I don't believe they're going to lose to Indiana or Maryland. What I'm telling you is I'm not giving them credit for wins that they haven't produced yet. That's what I'm not going to do. I see people do that all the time. They look at a record and they say, well, you know what? Michigan's going to do this and Michigan's going to do that. Guess what? In the preseason, I looked at the schedule and said, Michigan is going to beat the shit out of Michigan State. And then things changed. So I'm done giving Michigan the benefit of the doubt. I'm done giving Jim Harbaugh the benefit of the doubt. Should they beat Indiana and Maryland? Absolutely. But I'm sure as hell not going to sit here and pound the table, give them credit for those wins when they haven't gone out and done it yet. Now we're in. Just do it.
Listen,
and upset this guy's on one.
Now upset after one loss. Guess what, dude? I had him at 6-2 right now. I had him at 6-2, even with a 7-5 record. Now, again, I'm probably going to be off by more games, but like they just lost the only game that has freaking mattered this year. If you want to just, put them in big, broad categories. Was the win on Wisconsin solid? It was. It was a solid win. Was the win against Nebraska a solid win? It was a pretty good win. They were fired up. They were in it. Michigan punched back, came back, and got a nice win on the road. Those 2 games don't mean dick compared to Michigan State and Ohio State. Nothing. Nada. There aren't posters up in the weight room talking about beating Nebraska, okay, or Wisconsin. There's not. There are every season the game is basically 3 to 4 games.
Right.
If you lose one of those other ones, it really blows. Like in the past when they lost to a Maryland or they lost to Rutgers or you go back to Juice Williams or whatever, they lose to Illinois. Those games blow. Like that's inexcusable. Losing to Michigan State and Ohio State regularly is also inexcusable because those are the ones that you have to get and those are the ones that count the most.
You know why else it's inexcusable?
I don't know. I mean, like,
you know why else? Because we've seen other people do it. I get that it's hard. Nobody's saying it's not hard and not difficult to come out of the Big Ten East. But are we really at a point with Jim Harbaugh right now where it's like that's the argument that it's hard? We knew the job was hard.
Here's the point. I love this earlier this year. I came out, talked about how Michigan was kind of dropping the ball on name, image, and likeness. People jumped all over me, said I didn't know what I was talking about. And then Hunter Dickinson came out and said the same thing. Then people were like, oh, shit, maybe Brandon knew what he was talking about. I'm saying that this is a disappointment. Even if they are 7-1, it's a disappointment. It shouldn't happen because they lost to Michigan State. What did Aiden Hutchinson say? What word did he use?
I saw that.
It is a requirement that you beat Michigan State. A requirement. Zach Zinner was on social media last week talking about, don't worry, Paul, we'll be bringing you home soon. That's the expectation. It's to beat them, and they didn't. They didn't.
And so
you
listen,
Aiden Hutchinson is freaking jacked that they're 7-1 right now. Do you?
But here's the thing. So what you have to understand is these guys are going out of their way to make these statements. Now they're going to talk to but Zach Zinner doesn't have to post to social media, and Aiden Hutchinson doesn't have to say things like it's a requirement, but they're saying those things. So if they're going to say it and put it out there, why is it not fair to hold them to the standard they're setting for themselves? Like, ask Jim Harbaugh what the standard is at the University of Michigan. Is the standard to beat Michigan State and Ohio State? Is it? Because if it is, just answer that yes or no. Is it? Is that the standard anymore?
So I guess if one of these guys over here that's asking us about this 7-1 thing was at a press conference and Aiden was speaking, they'd be like, don't worry about that requirement stuff, man. You're 7-1. 7-1. No big deal. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that loss last weekend. You're 7-1. Someone had you 6-2, and you're 7-1. Take a week off. As a matter of fact, we'll see you on Saturday. Miss me, dude. Miss me with that, man. The expectations have changed, but the expectation is always to beat your rivals, dude. Like that's you have to be able to do that consistently. That's it. There's nothing else. You have to beat Michigan State often, in my opinion, and you have to be able to at least split with Ohio State. Ohio State's been a great program for years and years and years. Michigan State has been hot and better over the last 15 to 18. They've had Michigan's number. There's no doubt about it. But the way Michigan State recruits and things like that, Michigan should, on paper, have a leg up on them, and they haven't. That's even more unacceptable. I think you could make an argument that going 3-4 against Michigan State is maybe more unacceptable than going 0-5 against Ohio State. They're in my opinion, in my head, those are close to me.
You know why it's close though? Think about the circumstances. That's two different coaches in that 3-4, right? So that's over two different coaches in a rebuild. Like it wasn't necessarily a smooth transition when Mark D'Antonio decided to leave Michigan State. It looked like Michigan State was about to fall off for a minute. And it turns out not only did they not fall off,
they've passed
but they have passed Michigan. I'm telling you right now, in terms of the Big Ten coaching hierarchy, Mel Tucker is head and shoulders above Jim Harbaugh as of today. Can that change in the future? Absolutely, it could change in the future. But I'm not willing, again, to give credit to Jim Harbaugh for the possibility that he might be able to change that. All I'm doing is looking at the results. And if you can look at the results, the total body of work, and convince me why I should still defend this guy, I want to hear the argument.
So I'll say this. I'm about to throw a comment up here from Lewis Blake on YouTube. It was specifically Ohio State, but I don't think you're going to hurt Jim Harbaugh's feelings if you lump Michigan State into that group. They're going to beat their rivals or they're going to die trying. He said that. That's a Jim Harbaugh.
No, he specifically referenced Michigan State. Michigan State was in that. He said Michigan State, Ohio, your home state of Ohio there. So Michigan State was specifically referenced.
Well, there you go.
In the beat him or die, do it or die trying. Again, can we hold him to that standard if he sets it himself? Is it okay? Is it okay to hold Jim Harbaugh to the standard he sets for himself? Not according to some of this fan base. We have to care for him and hold him and prop him up. This dude's making millions of dollars to coach football where the primary job is to win, produce.
Okay. I had to take a cleansing breath there. We're over an hour, Chris. My heart rate's up a touch, just a touch. I'm good. I said this on the radio today too with Jamie because I'm not really sure where feeling this way and wanting this to happen so badly and being a little upset that it's not, and taking exception with the way that Jim Harbaugh's tenure has gone, somehow equates to not liking Michigan. Like I've never understood that. I've put out so many articles where it's like calling out a shortcoming or something that I wish was better, or I wish Michigan had done this, or I can't believe they lost again, or that loss is unacceptable. And someone's like, go cover another team. Like, what? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, I would cut off my pinky toe if it meant Michigan could beat Ohio State for the next 10 years. Are you shitting me? Don't say that to me. I just want them to, I just don't, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable.
You know what the great part about it is? Every time somebody wants to clap back at you or clap back at me for being overly negative, I'm just going to point to the record. Because everything that I have feared has ultimately materialized. It's come true. Maybe in a different form or a different way. Nobody expected trouble with the snap. But overall, this is now a track record. This is a pattern. So if you are still one of those fans who wants to reserve judgment till the end of the season, totally fine to do that. But don't ask other fans who have been going through this for the last 2 decades to do the same. It started before Jim Harbaugh got here. I'll give you that. But we all know why he was brought here.
So Jamie and Matt Leach both dropped that on me on the radio today. Like they had some big point like this. This is not just the Jim Harbaugh problem. And I'm like, well, okay. Well, I mean, kind of, because, well, okay, I'll say that it wasn't. Certainly it hasn't been with Ohio State. They've won every game for 2 decades almost, minus 1 or 2. And Michigan State's been better than Michigan since like 2008 or 9. But that's the key point. Jim Harbaugh was hired to fix all that. He was the fixer. He didn't like the moniker. He didn't like the idea that he was the savior of Michigan, but that's what he was brought here to be.
Before you go any further, we're all in agreement there. That was the expectation, right? He was brought in to fix it. There wasn't a single person in December of 2014 that didn't believe he was brought here to fix it, right? That was the general consensus. So the idea that we're going to now compare track records with Jim Harbaugh, Super Bowl winning coach, dude,
he didn't win it. He played in it.
Oh, I'm sorry. He coached in a Super Bowl. It was AFC champion. I think he turned around the 49ers franchise. His track record was solid. This is not Brady Hoke. This is not Rich Rodriguez. Why you're trying to put Jim Harbaugh's record up against those two guys? Wasn't he supposed to be head and shoulders above them anyway? Wasn't that the expectation? So he's doing the bare minimum of what was expected, but it's the other stuff that we thought was going to come along with it. We thought when he was hired, Ohio State was on the clock. I can go back and show you infographics from Fox where guys are saying Jim Harbaugh is Urban Meyer's, Lee Corso, I think, said Jim Harbaugh is Urban Meyer's greatest nightmare.
Yeah.
Really? This is what they were saying about Jim Harbaugh when he was hired. It is so far different. I think maybe that's part of the problem is we're so far removed from 2015 and what the expectation was when he was brought here. We're just broken. Like we just have now just accepted it. That wasn't what this was supposed to be.
I saw a clip the other day of that introductory press conference of Harbaugh being hired at Michigan. Dude, he had about 1,000 teeth that day. I mean, smile was this off the screen. People
glowing, energetic,
cheering, clapping. He was
out. Do you think the energy in that room centered around 0-5 against Ohio State? The belief that was coming. But you moved the goalpost, Brandon. You moved it.
If someone would have stood up and said, Jim, I'm pretty sure you're going to lose 5 games in a row to Ohio State.
No, psychic medium. If she had been in the room and said, hey, I just want everybody to know, I'm glad we're all feeling good, but this is going to be 0-5 and 3-4 against Michigan State. It would have been like, have you ever seen that Chris Farley gif where like he's like smiling and then his face transitions to terror? That's what it would have been.
Yeah. Yeah. Sam, I don't want to do the argue thing.
They're winning. Wait, they're doing what? They're winning the same amount of games as they did under Bo, Gary, and Lloyd. Ohio State is just better. Hey, you know what? Take that last line, Sam, and put that on a banner and hang it up in your basement. If you think that's what this situation is at Michigan, right? Like, look at what you're saying. Look at what you're saying. You weren't saying this in 2015. Stop defending this guy, man.
That's wild.
I've said it before. Care more about the team than you do Jim Harbaugh. We all want the team to be really good. The difference is some of us have now seen enough to know that Jim Harbaugh can't get him there, and that's fine. I give him all the credit in the world. He put this team back into the national spotlight. He definitely made some improvements when he got here. But it seems to me after 7 years, it's safe to say, okay, I think we've reached ceiling with Jim Harbaugh. I think we've seen what this is going to be. Is it good enough? And I have a feeling that maybe for Jim Harbaugh and his winning percentage, it's good enough. But for these players that continuously come in and out of Michigan and leave without ever getting a chance to play in Indy, ask them if it's good enough. I don't think it is.
What years was Lloyd Carr at Michigan?
Oh, his final season was 2006, and I think he took over. What I can't remember his first year. Was it
95, 96?
I think 97 his first season.
Maybe it was. It might have been.
97 was his first year.
So I'll just say let's say it was 96. From 1996 to 2007, Michigan lost to Michigan State 2 times. From 1969, when Bo took over, if you want to do the Bo Gary Lloyd thing, from 1969 to 1994, Michigan lost to Michigan State 4 times. And then then you've got Gary Moeller in there from the late 80s to the 90s. Michigan, dude, no.
Careful with those comparisons.
No. It's not even freaking close.
You know why guys like Bo and Gary and Lloyd got the extra leeway? Because they beat teams like Ohio State. They just did it. If we have even one win over Ohio State in the last 7 years, I don't even know that we're having this conversation. I'll put it this way. If Jim Harbaugh still had one win over Ohio State to this point in his career, we would still be entirely justified in having the same conversation we're having right now. That's how bad it is.
95 or 96 to 07 for Lloyd. So, I mean, that's just, he's kind of viewed as like the last, really good. I don't know, whatever. 95 to 2007. Dude, he lost to Michigan State 3 times in like a 12 or 13 year span. So stop. Jim Harbaugh is under 500 in 7 years. Stop doing that. And all 3 of those coaches have multiple wins over Ohio State. Stop.
And have been to Indy, Big Ten title.
You're going to lose that argument, Sammy. You're going to lose it.
The thing is, you know what really pisses me off is that, like, I don't even know that I want to say it. Bo Schembechler is what he is. Lloyd Carr, I'm a huge fan of Lloyd Carr. Those guys earned their buy-in. Look at their record against Ohio State. Look at their first 5 games against Ohio State. What was the record? Like, they earned the buy-in they got from the fan base because they produced on the field. Jim Harbaugh didn't earn his buy-in. You just gave it to him, and you keep giving it to him, and you keep thinking he's going to produce. And again, he might, but he hasn't. And it's okay to say that. And far too many people in the Michigan media and the Michigan fan base are uncomfortable saying that. And I don't get why. It's a weird thing, man. It's almost cult-like.
I'm looking for a reason, holding through the night to find my place in this world. I don't know. That song just hit me, dude. I'm sorry. How do you feel about that?
I think I need another beer, and probably I got to change my shirt. Dude, hey, look at. I don't know how the people out there feel about it. I don't know what the numbers are, but that show, that was a blast. You guys kick ass, man. I couldn't even keep up with the questions.
Dude, we probably skipped a whole bunch, and I do apologize if we did.
We got to do this again, man. We got to
do
this again.
There were so many coming in that when I would go to one, and then I'd scroll down a little bit, and it would just jump. I know you guys can't see the platform, but on StreamYard, I've got comments coming in from YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and there's a ton. And when I scroll down a little bit, and it just jumps. So anyway, dude, I still think we got to a lot of really good stuff. There were a ton of people in here throwing comments at us. I saw a bunch of new names in here throwing comments at us, which appreciate that. Keep it coming back. Tell your friends. Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7. I do believe we are going to go earlier on Friday, so that way our guest can make it because he can't come at 7. But we're going to have somebody come on and talk about Indiana on Friday, and maybe a special guest as well. Not a player, not a coach, but somebody else that I truly, truly value their opinions on things. So,
I just want to say real quick before we hop off, Sam, I see your comment saying good job. Hey, man, we might not agree, but your interaction, we appreciate all of it, man. I love the debate. Listen, I live for that.
This is another thing. I mean, I'll talk some shit on Twitter. I'll call someone a goofy or a dummy or a Dumbo. It's never personal, dude. I don't dislike anybody who's like, I love Harbaugh. I'm like, well, I don't agree, and I think your reasoning is flawed, but I don't dislike that person. So I might have said, get out of here, Sammy. Hit the road. Dude, no, come back. Be back here every week. We want that. We like the debate. We like the talking. So we will see. Lewis, I see your question there. I'm going to start the music over again because I'm not quite done talking. I don't know what time yet. I'm sorry I can't give you a time, but I'm trying to work with the guy who covers Indiana, his schedule. I can't remember what he's got. I think he has his own stream or his own show with guests on Friday, so he's trying to work out the schedule. So I wish I could give you a more concrete time, but I just don't have it yet. So we'll announce it on Facebook. I'll put it out there on Twitter. We will be back on Friday. I'm thinking I mentioned 4 o'clock to him. I know that's a little earlier in the day. People might still be working. It is what it is. It'll be up there. You can see it again on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. It stays up there. So anyway, we will try to do it whenever we can. But yeah, I do anticipate it to be quite a bit earlier on Friday. So just keep it locked. Pay attention. Ask us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever. We'll try to answer it. But thank you so much again for everybody who contributed, sent in the questions in the comments. We just did a whole damn show and we didn't even have a script or a structure.
I mean, dude, that speaks to the people. They're incredible.
Incredible. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back on Friday.